they get to act, and this is very different from how Democrats act when they come into office. It's a curious thing, is that winning is winning. That's it. However you won, every other detail is unimportant. Democrats know that that's not how the world operates. It's a surprise to Republicans when they realize it. And the last time this happened, and a Republican sneaked in using the Supreme Court, took over a robust and growing economy from a Democrat who fixed it after the damage done by his predecessor, who was a Republican. 8 years later, the reins were handed to a Republican who got us into the Iraq War and who took his victory by a hair's breadth from the Supreme Court as if he had the right to implement the most extreme Republican policies, and then went about implementing the Patriot Act. This is not surprising the Republicans haven't learned this. We'll be back. It's the Hal Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide, on WCPT Radio, Chicago's Progressive Talk. Hey, do we have stream? Hey, all right. Thanks. Hey, Carl. And I'm using your favorite mic.
Were you able to hear the music?
Yes, I was. Thank you. Yeah. Yes, I was. I was just on a tear.
And you were a little bit. Okay.
I was a little bit what?
And at the end, you were like in and out.
Huh.
Okay.
I know. I think I know why that is. So I'm gonna hang up and call you right back. I can figure that. I can fix
Okay.
That. Okay. All right. Bye. It's always so. Oh boy. So, most of the time when I do the show, let's see, disconnect. Ooh, that's ugly sounding. That's a little better. Is that better, Lady B? Should be all right. In theory. We shall see what we shall see. That then. I don't know why. All right. Tech is up. So the lovely streaming software I use decides at today that it is no longer going to use. It's no longer going to let you use it on two computers at once. So I had to rewire it.
This is Tom Hartman, and you're listening to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide, on Chicago's Progressive Talk, WCPT.
Welcome back. So, Donald Trump's doing his whirlwind, I'm awesome, you're welcome tour, which, again, should kind of come as no surprise to anyone, because ultimately, when you're into sales, when you're, whether or not this wall was ever going to get built, that was not the point. The point is selling that idea to a certain group of Americans to reassure them that he's on their side, and this is a good deal for them. This is a, this was the plan. This, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, so Donald Trump's on his pat himself on the back tour, and he conceded Friday. This is an article from HuffPost. These are stunning admissions from this man, even for those who are just fanboying out about his win and what it's going to mean for America. Donald Trump finally conceded Friday that his supporters were vicious, violent, nasty, and mean during presidential campaign, but insists they've turned mellow now that he's president-elect. You people were vicious, violent, screaming, "Where's the wall? We want the wall!" Screaming, "Prison, prison, lock her up." I mean, you're going crazy. I mean, you were nasty and mean and vicious, and you wanted to win, right? Said Trump, speaking from an outdoor stage at the Florida Fairgrounds. But now you're mellow and you're cool and you're not nearly as vicious or violent, right? Because we won, right? Now you're sort of laying back. You're basking in the glory of victory. However, his Florida fans weren't all that mellow during his speech. They broke out twice in a renewed chants of lock her up, that prompted Trump to smile and say, "Oh, that's so terrible." And one supporter shouted that Clinton should be waterboarded and threw an empty water bottle at a reporter, calling him trash. CNN reporter, during this address, Trump had called the media dishonest, pointing at the reporters at the rally and calling them these very dishonest people here. They've written dishonesty about all of us. They've written dishonest. Oh, God. The man's grasp of the English language is pitiful. Trump's remarks for the first time, he's conceded that his followers have been violent. During campaign, he blamed several fights at his rallies on Democratic activists who are paid to stage them, as gotcha footage goes, and as much as the Republicans always seem to complain about quote-unquote gotcha journalism, they are incredibly comfortable with the idea themselves, even going so far as to take footage, edit it in a way that makes stuff look, well, just to make it false, effectively to invert its meaning, and saying that, as they went to this Democratic activist saying, we're going to rile up these Trump supporters, you watch, we're going to send people down there and we'll get some good footage of them acting out. Those people weren't going down there to start fights. Those people were going down there going, watch, all you have to say is something, mildly progressive or asking for equality for a certain group of people. And if you say that enough or you don't leave, these people will pick a fight with you. They'll attack you. Watch. And we'll pay protesters to go down there and make a stand against them. The regular protesters might not engage for very long, but our people will stand our ground. And watch what happens when they do. When we stand our ground and we don't back down from those ideas, then these people will act out. They will become violent. And we'll have footage of that. Now, you can claim provocation. You can whine about provocation. You can say from the point of being a Trump supporter that these people came down here to cause trouble. But if nobody's ready to lift up a hand against somebody that they have a political ideology that differs from them, then you don't have a problem. If Trump supporters aren't comfortable with that violence, you don't have a problem. So, it is kind of extraordinary when you get a group of Trump supporters or Republicans saying this is the Democrats are hiring agent provocateurs, which is not exactly what it was. So just basically saying people are coming down there to start riots, when ultimately the riot is begun by someone just standing in front of you and saying something you would disagree with until such time as you become violent. And I wouldn't claim that when any person who purports to be progressive or on the left would do something to the equivalent. There's been a couple of times in the media where people who supposedly represent progressive or left-wing causes have threatened violence upon somebody who disagreed with them or or said something kind of physically provocative in that circumstance. I don't agree with that, but I certainly don't blame the person who said what they said for the reaction of the so-called progressive. That person is responsible for what they say. And for being a party of fiscal responsibility or morality, those two things are largely out the window at this point. Okay, so let's see. The Florida comments were viewed as an oblique attempt to address the spike in hate crimes since his victory. His rhetoric, including pledges to build a U.S.-Mexico border wall, ramp up deportations, create a Muslim registry, and enact a ban on certain people entering America, have been linked to the rise. Unlike Trump's perspective on the current climate, the Southern Poverty Law Center tallied the increase and found that his victory did not diffuse violence and threats, and it likely did help unleash the surge. That's of no surprise to anyone, since most of these people are acting out of a renewed sense of this illusion of support that they've gotten. I don't like it when I see, and then, this is the other thing from Trump. I don't like to see people burning our flag. I don't like it, and we're going to try to do something about it. Something he said. And then he ended it with a call for national unity, which is classic Trump. In this, this is terrific. Whether you're African American, Hispanic American, Asian American, whatever the hell you might be, we're all Americans and we're all united by one shared destiny. Just totally dismissing the idea that people's identity has any merit. Because if you'll notice, he didn't even pull it out at the end and kind of go African American, Hispanic American, Asian American, Irish American, Italian American, Norwegian American, whatever the hell you might be. He didn't. He stopped at all the ethnic minorities. He did 3 of those because in the way that human beings process information, 3 is a pattern. And so you establish a pattern that is a point of agreement by using 3 as your example. It's why jokes work. The first 2 act in a certain way. The third way acts in the third person in the joke acts in an obtuse way, or a way that's perpendicular or to the flow of logic. Because you are breaking a pattern which the human brain expects you to solidify and carry on. And so when you've got a situation like this where he says, whether you're African American, Hispanic American, Asian American, or whatever the hell you might be, he is essentially saying those monikers don't mean anything. And that if you identify by any of those, you're effectively not acting like a normal, homogenized white American. That's what that is. And he's addressing a crowd that doesn't want to hear whether you're Italian American or African American or Asian American or Norwegian American or German American or Hispanic American. It doesn't matter. We're all Americans. They don't want to hear that. The crowd he's addressing in Florida wants to hear when people say African American, Hispanic American, Asian American, that's a bunch of nonsense. That's the reality. Now, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about some of the floated concepts and remedies around the Trump presidency, whether it's actually going to happen, and the idea of the Electoral College votes this week, which is, usually a point of boilerplate, and now that might change. I have my doubts. I think we're staring down the barrel of a one-year constitutional crisis about Russian involvement in the election, more so than a non-inauguration, non-electoral college voting situation. But we'll talk about that when we come back. It's the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide. We're now streaming on YouTube. You can come and see us over there. I'll tweet out the link at Hal Sparks right now on Twitter. Mm-hmm. It's so weird. Get a little mid-tone up in there. Okay. And sound is okay in the chat room. Everything's sonically we're okay across the. Yeah, skinny. I think that's arguably. Oh, good. Not loud enough. Okay. Compared to WC. All right. Let's see. Try to get those mains up, maybe. Next time, baby. Check. All right. Maybe that. Perhaps that's a little better. It's hard to say. Read
30 seconds.
Thank you. Could be touch louder. Okay. I tried to raise the volume for that, guys. Try to take. I just don't want it to be too unclear. No bass roll off. That's negative 20. Is this a little better, perhaps? Let's see if we can.
Now back to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide, 773-763-9278.
So it's not surprising that as we get closer to this, to the Electoral College, Trump's getting a bit touchy about all the news regarding Russia. And it is no surprise that in a situation where the entire country has I think Donald Trump, whatever his rating is via the public, which is extraordinarily low, uncomfortably so for someone who would want to claim any kind of a mandate, you have a situation where what the American people think of Vladimir Putin is stunning, that anyone would want to align themselves with this person. That they would even, in many ways, protect the concept of this man's rule or how he goes about it. You know, we had this, a situation where where reporters have been murdered, where the Russian spy that was not, I guess, favorable to Vladimir Putin got radioactive isotopes sprayed in his face, died rather gruesomely, and on his way out, on his deathbed in the hospital, said Putin did this. Putin's former FSB, which is, this like straight up. That's it's as if the United States, picked a CIA agent to be the president, and then were surprised when black sites grew by 300%. None of us would. But it's amazing to me that over the course of this, this controversy, now would this level of stuff, and again, this almost ties into what I was saying before about blaming the violence on the protesters who came to the Trump rallies and said what they said. There's an element to which the Russian hacking played into the gullibility of not just the right, but members of the left and independents. That this idea that somehow that Hillary Clinton was involved in illegal activities, whether as benign as not having, going against the ethics rules and having a private server, which again we can have the debate about if you want. I don't buy that using Yahoo or Gmail or state.gov when it was hacked is the best methodology for one who wishes to have private conversations with their family while they're in office. But that's we've had that conversation before. We can have it again. But the essence is whatever you believed about, whatever the right has believed. Almost everyone who voted for Trump that was an anti-Clinton voter voted because they believe that she and her husband murdered Vince Foster, that Whitewater is probably not just a land deal that that they benefited from somehow, but that it was a great place to hide bodies. They believe in this Pizzagate nonsense. They feed into this level of conspiracy. One need only listen to a certain amount of AM radio, on the right to hear someone eventually bring up the idea that that the Clintons are either demonically possessed, or are involved in creating the possession of other people. That they are on a level of evil, with Hitler and the BTK killer and the Zodiac killer and nonsense. I don't mean Ted Cruz, but I mean the genuine actuals in this circumstance. And there's a huge group of those people didn't need any help. So when the idea that they came out that having where there's smoke there's fire, in terms of the private server, in terms of Podesta's conversation, in terms of Donna Brazile sending a question. By the way, never an email anywhere that said, hey, if you can get us the questions, can you send them? Never not an element in that email itself going, as requested, here's the question. This was Donna Brazile acting on her own, bringing this up, spreading this information around. Something I don't agree with, but not something the Clinton campaign asked for. But the storyline is that she was provided this question about Flint's water before the debate, where it was obviously going to be an issue. But the idea is that Clinton behaved unethically because Donna Brazile sent her this information. And you could say, well, they probably had a phone call, maybe, but you can believe all that all you want to. But when we're talking about evidence, what really happened in that circumstance was Donna Brazile sent them a question that was going to be in this debate that wasn't a surprise to anybody and did not come from a request from the Clinton campaign. And that when you're looking at the actuals of what went on in terms of the Clinton campaign and the what became the running stories, specifically around emails, there is no there. Never was. Never was. And yet, what was actually the turning point in certain areas where And all electoral shenanigans aside, we will push for terms of conversation, we will push the Russian hacking element, the possibility that they were hacking actual machines in certain districts to throw electoral votes the way of Donald Trump. The stories that are apparently coming out that there were more votes in Detroit than there were voters, that stuff, we will push that aside for the time being. We will, what we're going to talk about is where were we during this process? Now, I feel and I've felt all along that my conscience is clean because I've always, I was a supporter of Hillary Clinton's when it was because I liked where she was going. I appreciated her policies. I thought she would make a great first woman president. And if Bernie Sanders had won, I would have had no problem in the primary. I would have had no problem voting for him. I also know that because he was an independent who was using the infrastructure of the Democratic Party, even though he caucuses with the Democratic Party, he was not a Democrat, and it should be of no surprise to anyone that the Democrats in creating their own platform and in pushing for the candidate they want would support the most prominent Democrat, the one who'd been a Democrat the entire time. So this bizarre flailing about that the DNC had Hillary's back at any point is strange to me. And is equally strange when you hear some of the same people who had that, who said that the DNC didn't want Bernie to win and were doing everything to help Hillary, are at the same time out of the other side of their mouth saying, how did the Republican Party let Donald Trump take over their party? That is the same, it is a bizarrely contradictory logic. That being said, where were the independents, the floating voters in certain areas? They bought, as did a lot of progressives, as did a lot of liberals, they bought hook, line, and sinker the anti-Clinton Kool-Aid. They purchased their own batches of it, they mixed it for their friends, and they sent it out. And a good portion of the left-leaning media, I will lay a big portion of this at their feet. Now, here you have, by the way, and again, we have to operate on the idea that, yes, there was, I believe there were Russian Republican shenanigans that may have involved voting machines. That will be if you think of a main reason why we're going to need to turn the House and Senate within the next 2 years, that's a big one. Because if you ever want this genuinely investigated, that's what it's going to require, because the Trump White House has no impetus to do so. It simply undermines the lack of legitimacy they already have. But in terms of, and we're going to take a break. When we come back, I want to discuss this more. I want to talk about how the left has a responsibility not to toe the line or support someone that we vehemently oppose, but to understand that what occurred in this is not simply the act of a rise of white nationalism and a xenophobic reaction to that the right had that drummed up a bunch of new voters who are anti-immigrant. Hillary won by 3 million votes nearly. So had it been 3.5, those 500,000 voters would have been in areas all through the states that would have turned the Electoral College in her direction. And those are all Obama voters who somehow were talked out of voting for Hillary. And we're going to talk about why when we come back. It's the Hal Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide, on WCPT Radio, Chicago's Progressive Talk. Yeah, my my new plan, guys, and I've already buffered it for the year, is all those pictures that Trump hates of himself. We now need to send them to him directly with no other affectation. Fill his Twitter feed with pictures of himself that he hates. Because it's not even, you can't go, look at his ugly face. You can't say anything about it. Don't comment. Don't make him go, they're picking on me because they picked a bad picture and they're just da-da-da. Nope. Just send him the picture. Just keep doing it. And any Twitter troll that messes with you, don't go, you racist, blah, blah, blah. Just send them an ugly picture too. 0 words. Send them the picture. Yeah, I mean, you have to start thinking in terms of, this kind of, there's a level of misdirection and control that we have a responsibility for, that you got to start thinking in terms of how do we deal with this in a way that if this man wants to be busied with the...
1 minute.
Thank you. If this man wants to be busied with yelling at at Vanity Fair over reviews of his, restaurant, this is how he wants to take up his day. I'll come back. When we come back, I'll tell a story about Ronald Reagan. And this is... Yeah. Yeah, that's right, pal. Yeah, there were Obama and Bernie voters who were talked out of voting for Hillary. And I think we have a responsibility to call them out about that nonsense. Especially when there was this call about... Well, we'll talk about it.
Now back to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide, 773-763-9278.
So there's a story that was told about Ronald Reagan near the end of his presidency, where due to the fact that he was shot, he was already entering primary dementia. He was having issues with concentration, and as much as I have policy differences with the man, I have met his son, I have met his daughter, and as an actor who at some point will probably run for office, I certainly appreciate the fact that he was a groundbreaker in that area. Him and Gopher, sure, from The Love Boat. But because he was shot, it basically sped up the aging process, and it had a horrible effect on his physical person and his cognitive ability. And he apparently had a ritual that he would go through every morning about his that had to do with his dog and counting the blossoms in the pond that he had seen out his window. I think it was there's like a little White House fountain pond kind of thing in the backyard or what it was that he would look at, and if he could count those, he could stay focused and get through meetings. If he couldn't, then they kind of had to cancel stuff and move stuff around because he'd been through a lot. And if he had this ritual, if he went through this ritual, it was like a focus exercise, and he could get about the business of doing his presidential duties. And this is a tale that's been told from many different angles about the last year of the Reagan presidency. And when he spoke at the Republican National Convention in support of Bush, it was against the advice of his doctors, who said that just preparing for and giving that speech took a year off of his life. Because at that point, the stress of doing it And you could see it in his speech. He kept saying, all right, trying to, when they were giving him applause, because he was apparently afraid that if he got off track, he would not be able to get back on track. And it scared him. And to me, that's the saddest aspect of the Reagan presidency. There were a lot of issues I had with him. Certainly the tales of his reaction to the first signs of the AIDS crisis. However he came around later, notwithstanding, the first reactions to it were I think inhumane. And I certainly have issues with that. But that being said, as a human being who was going through primary dementia due to the fact that due to an assassination attempt, this ritual that he had to go through was, and a lot of people who deal with Alzheimer's or deal with any kind of cognitive issues that go with age have to do this ritualistic behavior to get their brain on track. And there's nothing, it is, since we do not have a cure for these kind of things, people do what they have to do. And you can have your own opinion about whether or not a person in that situation should be even allowed to be president or whatever. That's whether we should test for those kind of things, whether there should be a cognitive test and all those kind of things. But it is abundantly clear that Donald Trump is a mess unless he can tweet his id. Unless he can kind of vent himself on Twitter, he's a wreck. He's low energy, and he jokes about people being low energy. But the times that he's been muted during the campaign trail, where it looked like he was going to lose, where it was where they, his staff had taken his ability to tweet away, and he was dulled by the experience. When he got it back, he got his mojo back, at least as far as his behavior in public goes. And so it is seemingly tied to this, the allowance of being able to not only have this behavior, but act out in this behavior. And so he will not be able to avoid this during the course of his presidency. And so I was mentioning this in the chat room during the break, but he reacts negatively when people have pictures of him that he doesn't like. My suggestion when you're dealing with trolls or with Trump himself is to not actually use words, to simply send him pictures of himself that he does not like, because he will busy himself dealing with those things and not get about the business of destroying the country in some ways. He will avoid those things. He will be now the issue that we have is the Congress and the Senate. There are enough Democrats to run interference in the Senate. There are certainly enough Democrats to stop any Scalia-level additions to the Supreme Court. But the Congress itself, in how it is sending money out, it has a tremendous amount of control, and he will basically outsource that behavior to them. He has been making nice with Paul Ryan lately. He has been, and we're going to talk about Obamacare at the top of the hour, and then we're going to take your calls. 773-763-9278. That he's been, in looking at how he's going to govern, his contact to John Kasich's campaign is the primary indicator of the president he will be. It is no surprise to anyone that Dick Cheney was effectively the president from 2000 to 2008. George W. Bush was effectively a mouthpiece for what his party wanted to get through. The actual policy wrangling, the direction of that policy, the behavior of the government agencies was all directed by the Dick Cheney, who when people complain about Hillary's server and 30,000 emails that went missing, never realizing that the missing 30,000 emails is proof she wasn't hacked. that from a security standpoint, since the State Department and Yahoo, Ask Colin Powell, have been hacked pretty profoundly, the idea that using the other two venues as a way to conduct email as opposed to a private server don't really stand up to the fact that she was able to hide 30,000 emails. Everyone's complaining about that, and yet saying it was an insecure way of doing business. Curious that. Anyways, Dick Cheney had 2 human-size safes in his office, physical safes, for physical documents. Words written on paper that could be destroyed later. And so this idea, this chest clutching by the left about Hillary and are allowing ourselves to take the bait that was trolled in large part by, excuse me, I don't know, we got some sort of audio bump in, I beg your pardon, that was this information that was trolled by people on the left, people who we, largely respect. And I'm talking about the Young Turks, I'm talking about Lee Camp, I'm talking about the Huffington Post. This allowance to buy hook, line, and sinker the innuendo about Hillary Clinton as fact, and then to lament the control of fake news, on the control that fake news artists had on the election is, I'm sorry, inexcusable. It is foolish. It is disrespectful of the truth of policy. It is fundamentally naive and boorish. And I lay a good deal of the blame there. And so that's where our responsibility comes in. We'll be back. We're going to take your calls at the top of the next hour. 773-763-9278 is our number. This is the Hal Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide. We're streaming on YouTube as well at the Hal Sparks channel. Link is tweeted out on my Twitter feed, which is at Hal Sparks. And you can go to WCPT 820 if you just want to listen while you're driving in your car. You have that possibility as well. We'll be back right after this. Sorry. Typing on the wrong. Thanks, Majors, for the donation. I greatly appreciate it. Can't tell you. Oh my gosh. Yay. I'm Carl, I'm actually home this weekend for the first time in ever, and I'll be on the road starting next weekend. I have the holidays come up, and Cam and I are going to go on the family rounds like we did leading up to our wonderful Thanksgiving that we had. I apologize again for the sound on that one, and of course my poor mom, yeah, barging in. She always forgets that I'm on the air. It's so cute. Anyways, in terms of what the plan should be, I appreciate that, EO. Anything helps. You guys are awesome. We, of course, have the Patreon available as well. If you guys want to subscribe to that, it really makes a difference, especially when I had to buy a road version of this setup and a home version of this setup, and then eventually grow this piece. I thought it's so funny because I had this whole thing set up and I was like, it's my first show at home in a while, and I've got everything set up. And then Wirecast, the software that I use to stream on YouTube, all of a sudden decides you can only use it on one machine unless you buy a second license for every machine. Instead of having, I only use one version at a time. I either use my version that's on my laptop or the version that's on my desktop. But no. Wirecast only allows you to use it on one machine. Like no other software does that. So, I'm probably going to switch over to OBS, which is this free software, but it takes a lot of tweaking to get it to work. And Stephanie, by the way, in the chat, Jimmy Dore in particular was on a level. It was like in the Susan Sarandon zone of crazy. Like maybe this whole country needs to be burned to the ground because America terrible. Like there's a level of like anti-patriotic fervor that I found stunning. It's it's one of those things like where Trump's talking about how, I'm going to change the ability to burn the flag. You shouldn't be able to burn the flag and da-da-da. I'm like, I personally, my feeling, I personally believe that burning the flag is wrong. I don't like it. I think it's a terrible way to show your being upset about policies of America or behaviors of America, because I believe the flag represents the best of us. It's like burning the Constitution to some degree. It's a symbol of the Constitution, not a symbol of what we do wrong, but what's right about us. So, I
1 minute.
Okay, thank you. So I don't like it. I don't appreciate it. I think it's a mistake. And from that, I think it's but again, it's protected free speech. That's why it's so important, because it represents the Constitution. The Constitution says free speech is sacrosanct. It is the First Amendment. And again, this goes towards the right of alt-right people to have a website like Breitbart, say whatever the hell they want. But when they start complaining about Twitter kicking them off, sorry, it's a private it's a private company. If you believe in private companies, they get to kick you off. Sorry, that's these are the same people arguing that if a restaurant doesn't want to serve black people, they shouldn't have to. That's government interference in business. But if Twitter decides you're a jerk.
You're listening to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
I've had people walk out of me before, but not when I was being so charming.
Video streaming at halsparks.com.
I don't care for you or for the putrid sludge you're troweling out.
Damn fuss-faced little pimpstick.
True progressive talk.
Might be a good time for you guys to give up.
It's always great to talk to the chat room during the breaks, and one of the points that just came up was somebody suggesting that donating to the NAACP or to organizations that support Muslims' rights groups and protection of, the National Organization for Women, Planned Parenthood, or whatever, but doing it in the name of people who would hate it. That's they're going to get the money. If you don't care that much about the the tax write-off and you just want to benefit the organization, send $200 to Planned Parenthood and in the name of Mike Pence. I'm for it. I think that's we have to start thinking in those kind of terms if we want to win and win with charm. Again, I believe in the complete responsibility of us to present our ideas as forthright as we can, to avoid the automatic getting offended reflex that a lot of people have, and by the way, is the entire point of trolling, is to get you so riled up you can't effectively distribute your message, convey your message in the most logical and clear terms possible. If you get all wrapped up in fighting back and going, that's offensive, or that's prejudice, or assigning a label to a behavior, you're not actually doing any good for your cause. You're not expressing why it's the best methodology, why it's the way to go. Anytime you get caught up in trolling, anytime you get caught up in being offended by what they say, that panic, that lack of control, however genuine it may be, undermines the quality of your message. And as someone who genuinely cares about, when Jimmy Dore spits on Alex Jones, conversation goes out the window. Now, Alex Jones is the victim of
position. They are the enemy. Within, we will never, ever take part because, like you said, every time we get a Democrat in there that get things going in the right direction, what do the American people do?
Right.
They go right back to the
Republicans. But this is my point about Democrats, though. This is what, like I said, this is about our responsibility in this circumstance because I can't control the.
Responsibility is our responsibility
is to stop that.
Be as absolute as they are.
Right.
We need to stop playing with these people. Stop trying to go along to get along with these people. Whenever I hear politicians like a Chuck Schumer, keep your eye on this. Well, I can't call him that because of the rules on the radio. Keep an eye on him. Keep an eye on the deal making.
Yep.
Because what the Republicans do, they go after. They don't care what the media say about it. What do we call them? Do nothing Republicans. We call them the
party of no.
Party.
Yep.
They basically had a quiet coup against the President of the United States on January 20th with senators and House of Representatives in two different meetings saying what they was going to do to stop anything that the president wanted to get done, even if it was in the benefit of the American public and even if it was things that they originally agreed with. They were going to just stop. They were just going to be
That's right.
just a do-nothing Congress, a do-nothing Senate, and they wind their way into power. Now they have the House, they have the Senate, they have the Supreme Court, and they have the presidency. If I see any of my elected officials as Democrats playing nice with these people, I'm going to point it out and go against. They are no longer. We can't play the regular, they won, so let's do what we can do. And no, the hell with them. I mean, really, the hell with them. They sat back and cheerleaded the economy tanking. They wanted the economy tanking. They got in bed with the Russians. For God's sake, when Chicago didn't get the Olympics, they freaking cheered.
Right.
Literally, it's the equivalent of the windows broken law. You got to look at the little things. And I know it may be little and small, but the fact that a whole party cheered that one of our great cities in America didn't get the Olympics because a Democrat was in the House was as un-American as it gets.
Right.
It doesn't get any more un-American than that. And until we realize
I agree.
that these people don't care about our best. And think about this for me. He's about to put Rick Perry in a spot over the head of an organization that he wanted to abolish if he become president. these are things that we have to pay attention to who he's putting in these positions. He's doing what Republicans do all the time. They put people in organizations that they don't care about, that they don't want to do anything to help, and then they point at it and say, see, government don't work.
That's right.
And we allow them to get away with this by saying, well, let's not troll, let's do this and do that.
No,
burn the whole damn thing down. That's what they've been doing it.
Well, here's the stand up and stand our ground and stop letting this denigration of Obama and Jimmy Carter and Bill Clinton that we have been active participants in allowing to happen. The first thing starts with asking what you're asking, because I don't have me, I don't have a problem in direct conversation with these people, calling them out. And watch any of the tape of me at Politicon, from last summer. It comes as no surprise, but I watched all around me. Democrats spend more time that in terms of how we can go about dealing with this presidency for what it is. One of the ways you do it is get a bill through, one that Republicans have been fighting. Obama was they wanted. Talk about everything in the bill that Democrats have wanted and do it annoyingly so. I just think it's because you want like they did, then they can go, yeah, essentially, this is the way government works. You can't trust government to work anything. If they don't want government to work, you can't win by making them right. What you have to do is drive his supporters crazy by getting through a lot of what you want to get through, which is largely bipartisan stuff that is, hammer and nail stuff. Running interference on the stuff that's extreme, but not being just the wall where we won't even let stuff through that we agree with because it's him. Because I don't want to be guilty of the same thing that Republicans are guilty of, and I believe government's here to do good for people. It's a harder line to walk, no question. So the issue, in terms of what Democrats do in this circumstance, versus what Republicans do. I am not with the idea of being Mitch McConnell, kowtowing to the Russians, undermining our entire government simply because I hate Donald Trump. I think we have to be smarter than that. And I know this isn't the normal way of thinking. I get it. I'm probably the only person saying this. But it's kind of my job. I want progressive policies to actually get done. And I maybe I come from too much of a beast of burden, no pain, no gain kind of way of thinking about stuff. But we have a responsibility to shame these people by getting bills through that we want. If he signs stuff that Democrats agree with, and then right after he signs it, everybody just starts going, sucker! That has more value than, even though we supported this bill 2 months ago, we don't support it now. I just don't buy it. All the while, running investigations about Russian hacking and Trump's business interests overseas, and all the concerns that he has where he's trying to do pay for play from the presidential office, impeachment level hearings running concurrently. This is how presidents have been, directed into doing, progressive legislation or positive legislation for years. In many ways, it's how the Republicans got welfare reform out of Bill Clinton. The threat of impeachment, the Monica Lewinsky scandal, the push in that direction, the threats about that stuff, because it was out before it was out, believe me. There were conversations had about it. There were probably promises made, and again, this is conjecture on my part, I completely admit it, but there were probably promises made that if you go our way, this stuff never has to see the light of day, Mr. President. We have to stop thinking that there's a simplicity to how a country this complicated runs. You'll never hear me complain about the length of a bill. Let's see. Yeah, we have about 2 minutes. Let's grab another caller if we can, Lady B.
Yeah, we have Dave from San Francisco.
Great. Hey, Dave, welcome.
Oh, howdy, Hal.
Go ahead.
I'm a real history nut, and I've been lucky enough to read a lot of Voltaire and Thomas Paine and people like that. And so I've been looking for the people that had a sharp mind and a clever wit about them during similar times.
Yep.
You think of somebody like Voltaire, he got banished 3 times. He got banished by the French, and he had to go to Prussia. He got banished by the Prussians. He had to go to England, and then England banished him just in time to show up at the French Revolution. So, people with experience are often able to give us advanced warning about what to do in times like this.
Right.
And the first thing I'd say is, you look at this not as a political enemy. Trump is not political at all. He's going to be corporate wars.
That's right.
And he's like organized crime tied with corporate wars. He's kind of like the hitman for the corporations that are carving up the world for their personal gain.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we realize it's that kind of enemy rather than a political enemy, then you realize that the farmer is as much an ally of yours.
That's right.
Small businessman is definitely your ally. Even insurance companies are trapped by a guy like Trump because he's unreadable, and insurance companies like stability.
That's right.
So there's not a thing about, mining companies like to know that their contracts are going to be for 10 years. With a guy like Trump, he might jump ship in 45 minutes. Just all you got to do is say squirrel in front of him, and he's down the road.
That's right.
There's nothing stable about his economy, and he's notorious for never paying off. So there's a lot of allies that are out there. And,
That's right.
And I don't think we need to go into hiding as quick as all that.
Yeah, and I also don't think we need to fight in terms of what they would expect us to fight on. I think we have to be smarter about it. I think we had to look at the enemy you have and the weaknesses that he has and attack those weaknesses, not attack, in a similar methodology, which, by the way, is a failed methodology. The way the Republicans attacked President Obama, the man has a 59% approval rating. It's not working. It didn't work. It won't work. And he will go down in history, much like Bill Clinton and much like Jimmy Carter, as important, valuable human beings who did great work ultimately. And George W. Bush and to some degree George H.W. Bush and certainly Donald Trump at the end of whatever this is will go down as useless road bumps in democracy's history. Appreciate the call. We'll be back. More of your calls after this. 773-763-9278. This extra static. Sorry about that, Lady B, if it's...
Okay. You have 5 callers.
Wow, okay.
2 minutes to go.
Okay, cool. Yeah, we'll start in on them right away. Okay, sorry. Yeah, it's, I wish I could shield this better, but it's just the nature of it. That's actually, it's interesting because it's actually the static coming back from Chicago. Because this is me. It's weird. Maybe that's a little better. We'll see. Okay.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. Now back to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide, 773-763-9278.
Welcome back. We got a bunch of callers, so let's get to everybody. Really loved the last caller's point, though. But let's hear from everybody. I mean, I think this is more the merrier as far as strategy, ideas. There's a lot of respect to go around here. So who do we have first, Lady B?
We have Paul from Seattle.
Cool. Hey, Paul.
Hey, Hal, how you doing?
I'm great. Great. Go ahead.
Great. Let me go quickly because there's a lineup. In terms of the type of voter on both sides, I think the Trump supporters are essentially meme voters. They're meme believers.
Uh-huh.
And this is really a football game. They really wanted somebody who can kick somebody's ass. Whether or not the belief, their memes, what their meme actually means in terms of meaningfulness to their lives, I don't think they really care.
Right.
They just wanted to kick somebody's butt, and that includes taking Hillary down. That was most of it, because now that they won, it's been over a month, they're still, they still can't stop talking about Hillary.
That's right.
How we beat Hillary. They can't get past the we won. And on the other side, I think you're absolutely right. It's not only the sort of friendly, progressive media that bit hook, line, and sinker on the crooked Hillary. A lot of liberal voters did, too.
Yep.
Liberals are kind of this crooked Hillary. Yeah, I guess she is kind of crooked, huh?
Right.
And I'll tell you something else. The misogyny
yes.
on the part of liberal females is astounding. And I'll tell you how they called the WCPT. You had a call with a woman who called your show a couple of months ago saying that the Honduran people would rather starve than live with Hillary Clinton's lie that they didn't have a military coup, and they'd rather have their U.S. save cut off.
Right.
And I thought, I admire your ability to make so measured a choice for them. Right.
Right. It's maddening.
So
yeah.
I really think that there's. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it's maddening. Like that part of it. This came up during the Affordable Care Act, which, by the way, had its best week ever this week, as far as more people signed up in one day than had signed up in like the month leading up to the same deadline last year. It's doing great. Right. HuffPost says Obamacare had its best week ever. No, the facts say it had its best week ever. Not Obama. He may have made a statement about it, but he's not saying it, and therefore that makes it so. The facts make it so, but don't even. Yeah. So Hillary. So when the Affordable Care Act was coming up, there was tons of people who were saying, you know what? I'd rather have a fight about universal health care where we lost than have the Affordable Care Act. So 20 million plus people who have insurance, who aren't sick, dead, or haven't lost their house because of illness, those people should have waited and held their nose, because a bill that was never going to get through should have been fought on the floor. For what reason? So that the majority, by the way, of voters who didn't support an overreaching universal health care solution at that point, who leaned in that direction somewhat, but wouldn't vote on it, wouldn't genuinely support it actually happening, so they could hear that fight on the floor, so maybe in 10 years we could try again. What happens to those 20 million in the meantime? Well, that's exactly the argument around the idea of Hillary. Like, the Susan Sarandon argument. You know what? Maybe this country needs to burn down so people realize they stop voting for people who support corporate America in any way or what have you. Not realizing that corporations include, in entirety, small businesses, anybody who's incorporated, anybody who wants to incorporate it, anybody who wants to, corporations include SpaceX. They include Starbucks. They include, companies that have leaned blue, Google, Apple. These are all corporations. And while they need to be curtailed and made sure that they pay their taxes and they bring them back into the country and all those elements, the idea that, well, we'll just hand the government over to Donald Trump until we can, prove how right we are by wagging our finger well enough is insane. Yeah. So, and the misogyny isn't just to supporters, like female Bernie supporters or what have you. I stood at the corner point, and I appreciate the call, Paul, so much. I stood at the corner point of in a conversation. I was having a conversation with Liz Winstead and Anna Kasparian from the Young Turks, and we're all just kind of chatting backstage at Politicon. And Liz says, kind of without thinking and with no malice of forethought, that we're all, here we are, three Bernie supporters talking. And I said, well, actually, I support Hillary. I'm a Hillary supporter. I voted for her in the primary, and I like her. And Liz shrugged it off. Liz was like, oh, okay. Oh, my mistake. Sorry. Anna turned ice cold instantly and never said a nice word from that point on with me again. The entire rest of Politicon was negative and vitriolic. And that, that in and of itself spoke volumes. There was no, oh, okay, wow, I that surprised me. Why would you vote for her? Here's why I think Bernie should be, blah, blah, blah. That's the conversation you should have. And the conversation, by the way, I would have been welcome to, I would have welcomed engaging in with her. But that's not what happened. What happened was, you're dead to me, effectively. True across the board with my experience with the Young Turks about any of these topics. Not we disagree with methodology, but we share the same political desire. I want universal health care. I just differ on how to get there. I want $15 minimum wage. I think it actually needs to be $17. There you go. But I know you have to get there politically because we're a balanced country, as far as power goes. And it takes more than that work. As a matter of fact, leaving it up to cities and states has actually pushed it in more of a direction. The ironic stuff that states' rights have directed more positive movement in gay rights and in the minimum wage than federal activity on the issue. Is stunning. Let's take another caller. Who do we have, Lady B?
We have Kevin from Chicago.
Cool. Hey, Kevin. Welcome.
Hello.
There you are. Go ahead. Yeah.
First-time caller for anything.
All right.
Yeah, I really appreciate this stream of consciousness because I no longer call myself a progressive. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I wish we had another term.
Wait, are you leaving it behind like some left liberal? I mean, progressive was basically a patchword used by a lot of liberals once liberal became a pejorative. The interesting thing was liberal became a pejorative because of Republicans. Progressive has. Yeah. Sorry, say again?
No, I always thought it was supposed to be an inclusive term and not a litmus test for certain things, and that's what it's become.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of disappointing. I mean, last year I was so happy. I thought we had a great spread of candidates. We had Hillary, we had O'Malley, which I don't necessarily agree with all the time, but I thought he'd been fine.
Uh-huh.
I was thinking about Sherrod Brown would be a great president, or Elizabeth Warren, and a lot of my friends agreed with me. And at some point it was like Bernie's Jesus and Hillary's the devil, and I'm like, what the hell happened?
Right.
And as soon as that started, I knew we were going down a bad path.
Uh-huh.
And, it was like progressives, we got to love Bernie. Why? Why can't we just support whoever our runner is, because it's going to be much better than the other side? And at that point, I just kind of disengaged with those people who were talking this kind of litmus test. One way has to be it.
Yeah.
I know a lot of your callers and the people in your audience are probably thinking against me now, and that's okay. But it's like we had something good going.
Yeah.
We had finally moved the freighter where it's pointing in the right direction, and suddenly now it's like, no, we got to have everything right now. And why?
Yeah.
I mean, you are more of an insider than I'll ever be in that sense. Why do you think that happened?
Well, I think Alan Grayson went to Netroots Nation, and somebody interviewed him walking out of there, and he was really downtrodden. He was miserable looking, and they said, why is that? And he said, because identity politics have taken over the progressive movement. That it was more important, instead of being a party of inclusion that protects people who are a minority, it became fiefdoms of minority viewpoints dividing amongst themselves. And that's not how you build a political party. And it's certainly not how you get what you want, is the ironic part. If you actually want these things to happen. Now, keep in mind, I don't know who your Bernie supporting friends are, and I know of people like that myself. I've obviously had conversations like that myself. There was a good deal of paid Russian and Macedonian trolling to turn Hillary supporters and Bernie supporters against each other. It was our fault if we took the bait, though, I think is the important distinction. If anybody fell for it, it's not because, they made a really convincing case, I just fell for it. It's still you. It's still on you in that regard. So I think you're absolutely right. Do we need a new word besides progressive? Maybe we do. Maybe it's time for the futurist party. Maybe, that progressivism, they figured out how to turn liberal into a bad word. They use the same methodology when you talk about progressivism. So, I've always said I'm a Star Trek progressive. I look at the political world and with the idea that one day we're all going to stand next to each other with all of our differences, with a total respect for those differences, without a homogenation necessary for that, but a common cause of the protection of life. The idea that we can live our lives as we want, but not to the detriment of another human being. Or alien, I suppose, in that analogy. But the point is, I believe in liberal and progressive causes, but I've seen us eat our own more so than I've seen Republicans do the same. Granted, though, they did put Trump forward, and and chewed up their people. So we'll talk about that when we come back. I have to take a break. There's a lot to this, and more of your calls and our happy ending after this. It's the Hal Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide. And thanks for first time calling us. I appreciate it. Appreciate you being part of the conversation. Halist. I like it.
Hello, Hal.
Yeah. Yes. Hello. Can you hear me? Lady B? I hear you. I know you're there.
Less than a minute, and we have 3 callers.
Okay, great.
Hello, Hal?
Yes. Hello, can you hear me? I can hear you, Lady B. Hello? Hello? Check, check, check. Check, check, check. Check, check, check. Are you there, Lady B? I know I'm sending. I can see it sending out. I've got signal. All's well. I'm getting signal back from you. It says connected. The app is there. And there's all that feedback from Chicago's. Hello? Check. Check 1. Fingers crossed. Hopefully, here we come.
Welcome back to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide. It's now time for the happy ending.
Welcome back. We've got some more callers, so let's get to them. Who do we have, Lady B? Who's first?
We have Tom from Milwaukee.
Excellent. Hey, Tom. Welcome. Go ahead.
Hi. I just wanted to say that I think it's an interesting show you have. I wanted to ask a few questions.
Sure.
One is, you were talking about Bernie, and from what I could tell, it seemed like you're not thinking that Hillary worked for the Democratic Party to destroy him. And I've listened to MSNBC and some other sources, and that it seemed like it was a concerted effort to bring him down. And because of it, I think that's one of the reasons that...
I think there was a concerted effort for her to win. I think the idea of bringing him down is an extraordinary reach linguistically that got bandied about as if it was a genuinely common phrase. I think in a primary, she was fighting to win, but I don't find at any point she was denigrating his character as a human being or doing anything outside the realm of his ability. Now, you can believe that the DNC wasn't being 100% supportive of him or was, but he had access to the entire database of the DNC. He had the ability to use that entire infrastructure, even though he's an independent and had simply joined so he could run. He benefited from the DNC's infrastructure entirely. But this idea that they were trying to destroy him as a human being is language I don't think fits the conversation. Therefore, I hope that answers your first question. Continue.
Okay. One thing, too, is with the
with the keeping the illegal immigrants out, I think the common person definitely wants that to end, and I think that they would like to see the employers, in particular, fined and sanctioned for hiring illegal people, because they're definitely taking work away from real Americans and lowering real Americans' wages. I think too, on a different point, that the Democratic Party would have won more elections and will win more elections if they finally are viewed as more pro-life. I mean, a lot of common people are good people, and they view the Democrat Party as pro-death. And
yeah, I don't think. First of all, okay, I hear what you're saying. I think in terms of again, judging from the fact that you're using the word Democrat Party and that you're saying illegals, I'm guessing you're not a Democrat yourself.
I am.
You are.
But I'm pro-life. I feel like an alien in the Democrat.
You don't have to be pro. Understand that. I think there's a common misconception, and I think a very important one, is that the idea of being pro-choice isn't anti-life. It is simply operating from the position that a woman's body is sacrosanct, that she has control over it. And the idea that you could legislate forced pregnancy or forced carrying to terms of pregnancy at the expense of her life is not an American policy. It's not an American concept. You can be pro-life, but then you have to do everything that goes with being pro-life. If you're going to say genuinely you're pro-life, then you have to be you have to be for the demilitarization of the United States. You have to be against the death penalty. All those elements, not simply forced pregnancy. And I think a lot of Democrats, quite frankly, wouldn't have an abortion themselves. Certainly would pray that they were never in a situation where they had to have one to save their own life. But the option should be there if that circumstance were to arrive. And in the case of the Republican Party, there is an effective idea that using the concept of pro-life as a mask to cover the fact that they think that women are effectively broodmares for the church or the state, or both, and that she is expendable because the baby is more important than the living woman at any point in the pregnancy, is concerning. Now, that being said, E-Verify or some sort of card check system to make sure that undocumented workers from anywhere are not working in this country, overstaying their visas, taking opportunities from American citizens is absolutely a democratic element of the comprehensive immigration reform, the bill that would pass in a heartbeat if it was ever put up, but that the Republicans have blocked bringing it up for a vote because they know it will pass and give Democrats too much of a win. Again, it's one of the bills that I think that if Donald Trump is willing to sign it, which it very well looks like he may, then I think it would behoove Democrats to let it get through and sign it and then take a victory lap. I think pro-life, the unfortunate part of pro-life is that it has been lashed less with the sacrosanct element, the sacredness of life, but is also aligned with a group of human beings who are pro-gun as well, who think that that the killing of Trayvon Martin was justified, and the like, which I don't think is pro-life in any measure. I don't know how you feel about those things, but call earlier in the show next time, and we can have a longer conversation. I'm totally for it. I appreciate the call. Let's get one more caller before the end of the show. Who do we have? Lady B?
Ross?
Cool. All right. Ross, are you there?
Russ.
Oh, Russ. Hey, go ahead.
Hello?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. First-time caller, too. I'll make it quick. How are the electors picked? I know that they're not pushing it, but, for the love of God, it's a Hail Mary pass, I know. But you only got to have 23 electors. Anybody but Trump, please.
Right.
For the love of God, use your brain. Anybody but Trump. You don't have to vote for Hillary if you really hate her that much. Why, I don't know, but please, she
Yeah.
won legitimately. We can't go on that, but
Any of the electorates who want to vote for the actual person who won their state primary from a party standpoint, if there were groups of Republicans who said, John Kasich, would have won our state, that kind of thing, in a regular matchup, had it been a three-way race, they can go his way. I agree. That would be lovely. I don't count on it, but you're absolutely right.
why don't the Democrats push that, though? I mean, why aren't they pushing that hard this weekend to get them people to think?
You want my honest answer? I think it's because the right-wing supporters of Donald Trump are armed and prone to violence. I think that is always one of the reasons why Democrats are a little more touchy-feely even than they normally would be, is because the right makes sacred the right to bear arms, and that the carrying out of murder for political ends, what they call a Second Amendment solution to these problems, is they bandy it about quite comfortably. They put out little signs with targets on them, and I think that actually is a factor in why some people don't speak up, because these guys are nuts and they will shoot some people, even if it's not me. I don't want to be responsible for them killing some people. So let's try and make this work. And it's effectively the threat of a coup. It is the armed version of the false filibuster. That being said, those people have been the electors themselves have been threatened by Trump supporters with murder and rape. So I think that is a major factor in it. That's why. I think the electors who would vote their conscience and who say Hillary won by 3 million votes, she should actually be the president, are afraid for their lives. And I don't think they're wrong. I think I would support them getting some sort of protection and making sure that they are protected. But I think there are enough Trump supporters who are gun happy that feel like they would be doing the country a service and saving us from Muslims or what have you, that they would act on that violence. One need only look at the Bundy families putting FBI agents and U.S. Marshals in crosshairs politically. So anyways, we got to go. Thank you so much. See you next time. Thank you, Lady B. Thank you, all the callers. Thanks all the first-time callers. You guys are great. Appreciate you being here. See you next week. Thank you, Lady B. Have a great holiday, and I'll see you next weekend. I don't know if it's Christmas Eve, so I don't know if we're having a show or not. I don't know if you're available. We'll see. I'm game, but yeah, I don't want anybody to have to work on Christmas Eve because of me. Maybe I'll pre-tape the show and we can load it in, something like that. Anyways, you're awesome. Adore you. Bye. Yeah. So hi. Here's the thing. If I'm not on the radio for Christmas Eve, if they do end up, if we play a best of or the like, this is Lisa Ann, where are our leaders? Raving like Trump likes to grab. See my my Charmageddon diatribe on using that word to describe weakness for that. Let's see. Rocky Mountain Mike. I'm from the South. I know who these people are, and they're scared to death of each other. Hold on, I'm gonna try to get this. Turn this part of it off. Turn that down, and then I can use the mic, and it's just clear. That's lovely. Because I don't need headphones when I'm actually doing this part of it. Hey, what do you know? That's right. Go to the Pro Left podcast. I agree. Drift Glass. And I'm so glad, Jude, you finally got your shirts. Sorry about the delay. Julie is in Israel. Be safe. I am interested in coming there. I'm fascinated by the idea. And yes, I am spoiling my kid rotten this year. I've got I'm getting one. All right. there's a certain point where I think my generation, maybe even the boomer generation to some degree, spoiled our kids by getting them stuff we wanted, as you know, when we were kids. And so in that particular case, I'm getting him a one of those charge up electric drive around cars. So it's kind of a big investment for something that he'll be able to use for like 3 years or 4 years. But yeah. Yeah, I'm just excited about it. So, and then it's funny, but Cam likes unwrapping stuff almost as much as he likes having it. It's almost like, it's a volume thing with him. Like if you got him a Lego set, you could almost buy one Lego set and wrap every Lego, and he would be like, "This is the greatest Christmas ever." Well, spoiling yours with vacations, Julie, is not really spoiling them because you're making them travel and you're making them see the world at the same point. Hi, Shri. Hey, all the Lab Rats fans who tune in, I appreciate it. Thanks very much. I'm going to be on Home and Family on the Lifetime channel on Monday if you are so inclined to watch those. That was a fun time. Had a great time. Charles, you have to get a smartphone. Yeah. Yeah, it's more about how long he'll outweigh it, because in my family, you modify toys and stuff after the fact. You keep building on on whatever the stuff is. So there you go. You checked out my Facebook page? I haven't, Julie. DM me the link, please, because I don't know that I would be able to hunt it down, as it were. I am coming to St. Louis in the spring, actually. When is Hal going to be on? Are you smarter than the president? There's a certain point where I might start doing a thing like my advice to Donald Trump, from a policy standpoint, just start advising him on stuff on video. Like, hey, I know what you're worried about. I know you're worried about undocumented immigrants coming in here and taking jobs from Americans, and I think that's a reasonable concern to have, especially if you really care about, hardworking, blue-collar Americans of all stripes. Here's what I would suggest. Here's E-Verify. Here is any number of fines that you can do for corporations who take advantage of that, especially construction and real estate companies. And what you'll have is an opportunity where have a you can bring these, you can have effectively American migrant workers, people who work in different areas, who can truck into certain areas and go, okay, yeah, I'm going to go down, build some houses in Louisiana for about 6 months, and then I'll move on to the next place, and effectively, in temporary housing, if there are not enough workers there, there's plenty of construction workers in another state who might need them. So it becomes a normal part of, instead of paying a fine on all the illegal people that you hire, it would be cheaper if you set up temporary housing for workers from other states to come and work in your state. How about that? Here's a tax break for that temporary housing. Yeah, Bison Lawyer. Here's my comments on Obama's statement yesterday. There's on the one hand, again, I mentioned it during the show, but that HuffPost article that said that Obama says that Obamacare had its best week ever, when it did on the merits, numerically, it had its best week ever. As far as signups go, more people signed up for it than at any point in previous. Like 4 million people, I think, in the last month and a half have signed up for it, right as it's being threatened, by the way. Now that people think it's going to go away, they're signing up hoping that they can get in, because the Republicans have actually presented this idea that if they do repeal and replace it, it'll still be up and running for 4 years, which means until they can blame a Democrat, which is, I mean, that's really what they're talking about. They're talking about, we'll repeal it and we're going to replace it, but we'll let it stand in its current form for 4 years. Anybody who wants to use it, I mean, we don't know why you'd want to use it, but it's there. Those standards will be there. All those elements will be there. And then what we'll do is we'll start implementing elements that, to dial back certain parts of it until people get pissed. Like, it's so goofy. Solar 1001, yeah. This is a... it's an important way of, an element of when you're dealing with an opponent on anything, whether it be a debate or a physical fight. You can't just fight everybody like you fight everybody, because there are two things that will happen. The first one will be the second fight you have. Anybody who saw the first fight will know exactly how to undermine your battle. You will be completely predictable. And then the other element is that it will be seen as, whether your argument is true or not, as a tired meme in this modern fast-moving society. Thank you, Michael. Right, become unpredictable like Trump, right? That's Trump doing Court of the Thin-Skinned King. Yeah. Cassandra, that's a great point. We need to Jedi mind trick them for the next 4 years. That's why I was saying, like, we need the Victory Lap. Every time he does something that Democrats would support, Democrats need to race right out in front of a microphone and go, now, see, he can work with us. Here, there's a good thing. Look at him. There, he's doing some stuff on our behalf. And then his supporters will freak out. He'll like the attention. Depending on who talks to him last, he'll either go against his supporters or flip-flop on an idea he just had. He's predictable because he's so easily swayed. Use that to your advantage. I mean, there's been reports that Obama has been talking to him like every 3 days. And a lot of the things where people are going, oh, well, that's not so bad, have been directly because Obama's been talking to him. Because he's like, oh, well, Obama's paying attention to me now. I must be important. And, oh, he's a smart man. Well, he likes me. He must be smart. He's like literally Putin, he's pulling a Putin on Trump by having conversations with him. I mean, every time one of these things comes up, every time these situations comes up, and unfortunately, be it the social justice warrior movement or the professional left, in terms of those in media and those without, the response to the right-wing methodologies and right-wing plans and certainly the trolling and the expressions that mirror the trolling in actual policy, the response has been, in large part, that in some way, if you just, we'll just create a wall, or we'll call something out, we'll attach a name to it. It is almost as if you think by naming schizophrenia you've cured it. And so by saying that's racist, that you've solved it. And instead of saying, why would you believe something so racist? We don't do that. What we do is, they're a racist. And what happens is, anybody who supported the tangential elements of their belief system, like immigration, like that dude who called in, who's clearly, a troll. But I think I handled him well. That instead of just going, dude, you can't say illegal, that's just racist. You're just a racist. That's what you think. Blah, 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 blah. Which is, by the way, exactly how I've seen some of the Young Turks respond to people like that. And you have to understand that when you're talking to that person, you're not talking to just them, especially if it's in social media. You're creating chains of dialogue, and those chains of dialogue will, it is the same effect. You can't participate in the same behavior that you think is wrong and then expect some different outcome. Yeah, why would you say that? It's disrespectful. So the point is, you to some degree, there's been all this concern about the children. We must think of the children. And yet not speaking in a way that acts as if children are present, which they are. Everybody slips. Everybody has a moment of like, what the, and where you swear and you're like, oh, sorry. Don't use that word. That's not a good way, Instead of going, I got to check myself. I got to check my my natural reaction to just punch through at this, to attack this head on and go, wait a minute, will attacking it head on actually solve anything? Will this person realize they're wrong if I call them a racist or if I call them a sexist or misogynist? Will they suddenly find Jesus in this circumstance? No, they won't. But if I can shame them by attributing their behavior to somebody else that they disagree with, they will back away from that premise. And while they may still in some ways harbor the animosities and the concerns that they have, they're on less of a sure footing. Charles, yeah, it is hard to be nuanced and provide context in 145 characters, so you don't. Don't worry so much about context. Be clear or dismiss. Don't get involved. That's right, Carl. That's a great point. Sometimes the dialogue you have with someone is about winning them over. It's about influencing third-party readers who see what you wrote. Yeah. Well, even if somebody says global warming is bullshit, like Rocky Mountain Mike, like when someone in the office on a cold day says global warming is bullshit, I always, the thing about it is global warming, it's global. The other thing is, this has always confused me about progressives and people who want to deal with climate change, is that there is no fixing climate change without dealing with pollution first, essentially. You do not have to believe in global climate change, which many people, by the way, think is a lie because of their religious beliefs. They literally believe that God will fix the sky. Jim DeMint and a bunch of these right-wing senators and congresspeople over time have said, we can't destroy the world. The globe, God protects the earth and makes the sky blue, so we're not going to ruin the atmosphere. John, I'll start doing that probably later today. I'm not saying don't speak the truth when someone is spouting bigotry. I'm saying just saying it's bigotry doesn't solve anything. You have to undermine their premise. Or you have to say, what you're saying is bigoted because it assumes that everyone who is this acts like this. That kind of thing. Like, it needs more of a circumstance than that. You can't just go, you're a bigot, and expect anything to occur. Because the problem is, everybody who has a similar thought, but for non-bigoted reasons, their economic needs notwithstanding, their concern about invasion, what have you, that aren't related to. There's tons of rednecks who would pull, if they saw a black person in a car that was on fire, would run towards the fire and pull them out. But at the same at the same circumstance, say something relatively untoward about black people, kind of in the abstract, but they would run to save them out of the fire. Like, they exist. I'm telling you, these people exist. And so when you talk to those people, you have to go, dude, you can't say racist stuff like that, as opposed to, dude, you're a racist. Because then they're defining the definition that you've given them. They're either defending that, or they're going, I'm not racist, I just believe in white, blah, blah, blah. Like, you're painting them into a corner so they can attack you. I'm just saying. Okay, so climate change. Understand this. Every time somebody brings up climate change is BS, go, you don't have to believe in climate change. Do you believe in pollution? Do you want to breathe car exhaust? End of story. I don't give a crap if you think it changes the environment, but it definitely changes the neighborhood. It definitely pollutes cities. It definitely sends 100,000 kids to the emergency room with respiratory-related illnesses every year, and you're going to tell me you're pro-life, but you're cool with filling the air with pollutants that nearly kills kids? Who gives a shit if you believe in climate change? I don't care. But you can't argue with poisoning rivers and streams and poisoning the air. Yeah, that's right, Lisa Ann. You want your kid drinking polluted water? That's yeah. There's a point where you're only right, and by right I mean correct. You're only correct if you're effective. You can't pat yourself on the back for throwing a label at someone that, for all metrics, is true, but does nothing to move the ball in the argument. Because you're not right. It is as if you weren't even there. Defining someone as a racist, or defining someone as a misogynist or a sexist, or attaching phobic to whatever, Islamophobic, transphobic, homophobic, whatever. It's like the climate change argument. That may be true, but it doesn't affect the conversation at all to bring it up, to define them by those words. However, even the people who have those feelings, even the people who view those, if you said you're a homophobe, you're anti-gay or whatever, who would go, well, the Bible says Leviticus blah blah blah. Even then, even those people, if you said, why would you think something? I mean, that thought is incredibly homophobic. I mean, you can't be that scared of gay people. You're not scared of gay people. And obviously you're religious, so you believe in the teachings of Jesus Christ. So, and Jesus clearly never said anything about gay people. Obviously Leviticus did. If you want to believe that, that's fine, but you have to believe everything that goes with it as well. But essentially, if they're saying a homophobic thought, if you attach it, if you make it about the thought and less about them, they have to defend the thought and not themselves. People will go to such lengths to defend themselves. Broadcasting and chick casting. It's is that a sizist you're being, Rocky Mountain Mike? That was Leviticus, right? Well, again, puts them in a position where they have to defend it. People quote Leviticus are normally wearing jeans, which is an oxymoron, right? They're wearing mixed fabric. You can even go, well, the Bible says gay people is a sin. And you go, well, also polycotton blends are a sin of the same level. And in that moment, you go, and it is so much better to simply go, did you ever have a shrimp cocktail? What? Have you ever had a shrimp cocktail? Have you ever had popcorn shrimp? Have you ever had a lobster tail? If you went to Vegas, they were giving away free lobster tails. Would you have one? Yeah. Okay. Same level of sin as being gay in Leviticus. Same level. And then you're in a conversation about what the thought is. Then you're in a conversation about what's wrong with the thought. Then they have to distance themselves from seeming stupid because they believed something. Yeah, tattoos. There's another one. Right. How do you dress people are so entrenched they don't see how their vote will harm their own kids? It depends on what kind of vote you're talking about. Because I'll give you an example. For somebody who thinks gay is a choice, part of the reason why they want to believe gay is a choice is because if it so happens that they have a gay kid and that is embarrassing to them socially in the circles that they are in, they are surrounded by people who are who think gay is a sin or are homophobic or are grossed out by it or think it's a mental disorder or any number of negatives attached with it. If their child turns out to be gay, they have to face the social wrath of these other people. And standing up to them is very difficult. Some people just aren't up to the job. Okay, so she said, like my two friends' husband who voted GOP before they changed their mind this time and will never go back, but that high school classmate will never change. Voted for GOP before they changed their mind this time. Okay, well, I'm glad they changed their mind this time. A good portion of human beings simply cannot stand up to the social pressure of those around them unless it is not attached to their own personal identity. It's attached to an idea. I can distance myself from an idea, but if you're asking me to distance myself from myself, the natural gut reaction for most people, I'm working on it, Carrie. I'm trying to get you there. Okay, when I do stand-up, my rule is I need to know 20% more about a topic when I'm joking about it than anybody in the audience could be. That means if I make brain surgery jokes, I literally have to have 20% more knowledge about the topic than if there was a brain surgeon sitting in the audience. Now, obviously, I can't have all the schooling knowledge about him, but I can do a lot of research about how people have reacted emotionally to having brain surgery, or how other human beings react to the idea of having brain surgery, or what people's picture of what it's being like. And he, because he's a brain surgeon, really only thinks about the process of doing the actual act, and there's a lot outside of it that he hasn't even considered, right? So that's my responsibility. The same thing is true in a lot of ways of progressives. When you're trying to push an idea that is 20 years ahead of where the public is, you have to have an awareness equal to that, the strategy that's necessary. You have to have, you have to go, okay, I'm asking for, asking people to be progressive is a big ask. Otherwise it wouldn't be progressive. It wouldn't take any work. One of the reasons why Republicanism works so well as an ideology is because you've already seen it. They have an illusion of what it's like. You know what I mean? They think it's the 50s. They think it's the white 50s. So when you say, make America great again, they think, oh, remember the worst thing we had to worry about was Biff Tannen? Oh, things were pretty good back then. I mean, they weren't great for some people, but, they weren't as bad as people said they were, and it wasn't everywhere, and maybe in Mississippi they were still lynching people, but, New York, there was some housing discrimination, but we could fix that. That's minor. We're past that law-wise. Now can everybody just go back to behaving like they did in the 50s? That's what they think. So it doesn't require any effort to convince them that that's a possibility and that's how it would work and all that stuff. You just go, remember that? We can do more of that. Brain can picture it. They can go there. They think it's a possibility. Even if it's a total farce, even if it never will work, they have a reference that they can manage intellectually. Meanwhile, be careful with the Make America White Again stuff, though, and I'll tell you why in a second. And turning white into a pejorative. It's just as much a mistake. I'm telling you. It's racist. It is. And I know I'm saying that as a white person, but it's racist. I'm a white person who was born this way. I can't change it. If I tried to change it, I'd be awful on an M&M Vanilla Ice level or something along those lines. It's just the reality. My son is white, and he's going to live his whole life that color. I'm not going to wish anybody to carry any extra weight because of how they were born. Nobody. Period. Just stop right there. It's got to stop. You can't cry out for everybody should be allowed to be themselves except for cisgendered, heteronormative, oppressive patriarchy. Whatever. Like, it's silly. Like, at a certain point you go, yeah, everybody should be able to be whoever they are. Whatever your natural sexuality is, you should be able to be that. Whatever your natural gender identity is, you should be that. Whatever your skin color is, you should live and identify as that. Period. The minute you start going, because white people, you're like, okay, well then, what's the difference between those, the groups of white people go, everything was fine until all these Hispanics showed up. Like, it's the same mentality, and you have to move beyond that. You have to, if you want to be a progressive, if you want to be a liberal, you have to elevate above that, and it takes more work. As a black person, I'm still tired of because they don't know any I never met an Eric before, but I know it's wrong to beat him or hang him because he's got a name I don't know. I completely agree. Make America follow a serial liar again. That works, Carl. See? There you go. I'm going to read a little bit of this to catch up with what you guys are talking about. I'm not saying you want to make America white again. You're saying that Trump supporters and Steve Bannon don't want that. No. I'm saying that some of them may, but you feed in. Do I think Steve Bannon wants a white America? Hell yeah. Of course he does. But the problem with, okay, this is always the circumstance. So a person who has no problem using racial epithets runs across a member of a minority who is behaving in an untoward way. Genuinely, as a human being, they are being an asshole. But instead of calling them out for that, they use the N-word, or or a pejorative for a Hispanic person, or they call them a pejorative for an Asian person, or they see a woman who's behaving in a horrible way, and they attach her gender to her behavior. They go, this broad, this blah, 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 you know what I mean? That kind of thing. When you attach the elements of a person's being that they cannot change to a negative behavior you're trying to address, you suddenly line up all the people who also share that identity or gender to them against their will. If Sarah Palin is bad at her job as a half-term Alaska governor and a crap VP candidate, none of that has anything to do with her being a woman. None of it. As a human being, she is incapable of doing that job because she is intellectually uninterested in doing the work necessary to do it, in the same way that Donald Trump is. But the minute you say, the minute we buy into this Caribou Barbie stuff, Or, you know what's a better example? I'll give you a better example. People who make trans jokes about Ann Coulter. Ann Coulter needs a sandwich. Ann Coulter is too skinny and to a level that is unhealthy. I am certain, having spent moments, I haven't been around her a lot. I was only, near her for a few minutes, never actually spoke to her backstage at Politicon. But being near her, she is a naturally skinny woman who probably has too restrictive a diet that is unhealthy for her. This is my non-medical diagnosis of a human being that I've seen that I go, wow, this person would be shit in an emergency. Meaning, if something falls over on somebody, she's not going to help pick it up. Anna, Liz Winstead, any of the other women there would absolutely be useful in helping. That's very funny, Carl. Vampires, see, that's a good reference. Vampires a perfectly fine reference about how she is, because that's about humanity. That's about her. That has nothing to do with her gender. But making trans jokes about her having or not having an Adam's apple, all that kind of stuff, automatically denigrates trans people. It somehow makes her part of a group and says being part of that group is a negative. And you can't do it. And you won't see me do it. Like when I was on Steph's show, I used to balk at it all the time, and I didn't participate. Because I don't think it's fair. And I think it cheapens your argument about what's wrong with what she's saying and what she's doing. Calling her a vampire who sleeps in a coffin made entirely out of the policy papers of the Chicago School of Economics is a perfectly valid criticism of her as a human being. Now, once you make a trans joke about her, then suddenly you're saying being trans is a negative. Otherwise, I wouldn't attach it to such a negative person in a pejorative. I disagree. And if I disagree with that, and if I disagree with denigrating someone, their political worth, or their celebrity worth, or their intellectual worth, because of any trait they were born with, I am now part of the system that allows for that to happen. I cannot claim that I am upset with ableism or size discrimination or racism or bigotry or prejudice if I also say that white people blah blah blah, or straight people blah blah blah, or whatever. Anytime you attach something that somebody can't change, and this is like I talked about this on Steph's show, is I don't joke about stuff people can't change. And I think the one area where it's worry about that, and again, this almost deals with what I was talking about with Ann Coulter, is weight. You have more control of it than you think. I will always agree, and I also believe that addiction falls into that to some degree. I personally believe in the strength of the human spirit, and since cold turkey and AA have almost the exact same batting average, to me that says that if a person wants it, they can do it, and they just need a support structure. Some people need a mechanical support structure. Some people just need their own internal soul fire to kick them into gear and make them change. And without, some people might quit cold turkey and they need a group support and they don't get it, so therefore they go back. Some people quit cold turkey and they need to just believe in themselves. They may be surrounded by 100 people who support them, but they don't believe it inside, so they all go back. It's that kind of thing. So I believe in the human spirit, and I will always believe it. Again, that's my personal belief, and that fits in the realm of my personal opinion, and my personal opinion is strictly my own. And I stand by it, and I will argue it, and people can argue theirs, and that's the valid part of it. I'll quit being all logical and intelligent about how to call someone out so that it's actually effective. That's exactly my point. And Carrie, I get where you're coming from, because Carrie, you're one of the best advocates we have in the chat oftentimes for people who are, for especially gender and gender nonconformist views of self. So I know that's important to you. The question becomes, are you actually able to affect the people who need affecting, or are we just going to preach to the choir? Because we have a very forgiving choir most of the time. But we don't need to convince them that gay marriages or trans rights are need to be implemented. Of course they do. Here's the trick, though. A lot of libertarians and a lot of alt-right, quote-unquote, alt-right Republicans don't actually have a problem with trans rights either. They view themselves as sort of Ayn Rand libertarians, in that the government shouldn't have any say in how somebody identifies. And they may have their ideas about it being sinful or evil or what have you, but they at least believe that the government shouldn't have a thumb on it. And the smart person goes, good, we agree on that. Cool. No more argument, no more conversation. You and I both believe that somebody's gender identity should be their complete business. Cool. There you go. Now, you want to have an argument about whether or not businesses can refuse service to people based on an identity that is sacrosanct? Now you have to go back against the agreement that we already have, that people should be allowed to be whoever they are. And since businesses can't bypass the benefits they get from taxation, roads, street lights, airplanes, the FAA, making sure airplanes don't crash into each other. So if people want their little, comfort food macaroni and cheese place, in Louisiana, they don't want to serve gay people, or they don't want to serve black people, or what have you, and you go, well, you can't do that because those people don't have the option not to pay taxes, and you benefit from their taxes. So equal protection means that, if a black soldier has to go fight for the right for you to have this corporate structure where you can have your own business, then you got to let him walk inside, dude. You got to serve him. Blakely Plus. So calling Melania a T-girl is bad, but calling Eric Trump a shaved Wookiee is not. Got it. But I used both to troll Trump on Twitter anyway. Know about the T-girl. I would suggest, in leaning where you're talking about it with Eric Trump, I would say a gray. An alien gray. Because it is more about manner than physical being. Again, you're not making fun of people for stuff they can't change. What is it? Milo is putting up huge pics of specific trans students at college he's talking at. Huge pics of specific trans. Milo Yiannopoulos is a dick. He's a jerk, but he's a professional jerk. Understand that. Understand who you're dealing with. Because if you just flip out and go, oh, he's behaving, look what he's doing, that's what he's looking for. So you're just giving him what he wants. I mean, the reality is that you can, the best comeback against Milo in many ways is to go, okay, believe what you want about equal pay, but the Republicans fighting the Ledbetter Act for women who found out after the fact that they had not gotten, even though it is the law, that equal pay with their male co-workers for doing the exact same work, should be able to sue because it is a civil matter that they can fight in court. They should have the right to do that. So believe whatever you want, but then have the law. The law should reflect both our beliefs. We both agree that women should and do get paid the same amount as men for the same work. And if they don't, they should have legal recourse. Okay? Okay, done. All right, so fine. That aside, Milo Yiannopoulos is openly flamboyantly gay. And he's a alt-right. He's a editor at Breitbart, and He called out a trans woman at an election he was giving. She responded with a scathing letter to the uni president, who afterwards called for support of trans students on campus. There you go. That's how it should go down. He said what he said. She responded, and then they supported trans students on campus. You might have to reload if I freeze. That happens. The biggest comeback against Milo Yiannopoulos is that if the Republicans got everything they wanted, he would be the first to go. That he is defending the infrastructure of the Republican Party and the right that would hang a person like him, effectively. And if Milo or anyone he was in a relationship with became ill before the Obama presidency, he would have never been able to see his. He would have never been able to see his partner in jail. Hold on one second. Whoops, sorry, lost you for a second. Hi, there I am. Ta-da! Yes, it was a private call. I could see your lips move. Still muted? Really? Should be up now. You see it? Hello? Check. Check, check, check. Yeah. Am I back? Hello? I think I'm back. All right. Video and your commentary while at the Creation Museum was funny. Oh, thank you. Yeah, that was a lot of. That was a good time. Still low volume. I'll bring this up a touch. Yeah. So, cool, nice. So again, when you're dealing with someone like Milo Yiannopoulos, you have to outsmart the circumstance. You can't just go, oh, because he's gay, he thinks he can say racist stuff and get away with just racist. And then you use racist, and then he goes, I'm not racist, I just believe in the American way. Thank you, Blake. Appreciate that. There's an importance to go. I watched a video actually where a guy was called out Milo Yiannopoulos at one of his lectures, and then Milo threw it back and said, "How am I racist? Sure, explain how I'm a." He goes, "White." The guy called him a white nationalist. He goes, "How am I a white nationalist? How am I a white nationalist?" And the guy couldn't defend it because what he meant is you're enabling white nationalists because of how you speak about what you speak. You may care about these issues and you may say, oh, I'm just supporting causes I believe in or economic libertarianism, but the language with which you use it is slapdash, and you are there are those who you are speaking to who are taking your words as an excuse to be violent or to act out. And if you say you don't know what I'm talking about, you're being disingenuous. And then when you say something like that to him, he will do this. Because every time Milo Yiannopoulos is about to say something he himself does not believe, he sticks his tongue out. There you go. He goes. It's the weirdest tick. It's the same thing when Trump is reading something and he does like this because he's following the bouncing ball. You can tell he's never seen the words before. When Tom Martin says the American way, serious, what American way is he talking? So the devil's advocate for hypocrites because they have Apple products, buy Starbucks, and we're seeing in Panera Bread. Yeah, absolutely, totally. Which are all pro-LGBT, but those places don't refuse them service, right? Yeah. The question I often have is that do you ask people if they have been divorced before they walk into your business? And if you say no, then I know your bigotry is limited to stuff that icks you out. It has nothing to do with your true beliefs about your religion or any of that stuff. And as a matter of fact, if you truly believe what you would how you would make gay people uncomfortable is that you would proselytize to them in the most loving way possible. You would specifically, instead of going, get out of here, sinner, you get behind me, Satan, you'd actually go, I know you feel that the way you live is this way, but I want to know that I in my heart believe it's a sin, being gay or whatever, whatever their belief system is. I believe what you're doing is a sin, but I accept you as a child of God, and I lovingly hope that one day you'll find that Jesus Christ loves you and will forgive you of any sin you've committed in your life, as I feel that he has done for me, blah, blah, blah. That's the way you would handle it if you really believed what you're saying as a Christian. But they don't at all. They're just icked out by something, and that's how they go. So, yeah, there you go. Especially if it doesn't sound like an ambulance, right? So, again, it's about responsibility. Are you able to respond? Are you capable of responding in this circumstance in a way that isn't predictable, tired, defensive, or overtly simplistic? Yeah, Trump sniffs. That's exactly it. He goes when he knows he's lying. Interestingly enough, not always when he knows he's lying. When he thinks he's going to be caught in a lie, then he does it. If he thinks people are looking at him and he's about to say something and he knows they kind of know it's bullshit, he'll go, a friend couldn't go, so can you take it? Push me right when they notice I have a white cane because I'm legally blind. Lord Dracul, when whom approaches you? So I didn't see that part in the thing. Trump gets to give his inaugural speech in 30-degree weather, probably with wind. It should be most entertaining as a visual. I agree, Carl. Sniffer in chief. Lying is bad for his sinuses. It's great. Yeah, so, Bill Hicks had this awesome bit where he talked about, he did all his religious material, he was down in the South, and these guys came up afterwards and, cornered him outside the club, and they said, hey, man, we're Christians, we don't like what you had to say in there. Basically being threatening, and he went, well, then forgive me. And there's been no more beautiful response to that kind of circumstance. The gays are the Hillary Clinton is a da-da-da. You're like, well, then forgive her. Hold her in the light of Jesus Christ in your heart. Pray for her every night. Duh. Are you a Christian or not? Don't tell me what you are. Do it. Anytime a right-winger, here's the thing. Anytime a right-winger says, Hillary Clinton's evil and she blah, blah, you can just go, well, then forgive her in the name of Jesus Christ. Wrap her in the light of the Lord and pray that she finds love and peace. That's what you're supposed to do. And then turn the other cheek. The problem is when a progressive says it. You know. Because if you bring up their religious beliefs about it, or lack thereof, forgiveness in a progressive's heart, especially if you're an atheist or an agnostic, you don't believe any particular God, forgiveness is a more personal act. Forgiveness as a dictate from the Lord actually gives you some, room to pat yourself on the back. You're like, I'm on God's team because I'm being forgiving right now. I could not be forgiving, but I'm, big guy likes me when I'm like that, which is great. But when you do it, when you have to do it all on your lonesome, then what? Are you really, and you go, I'm just going to be forgiving. Takes more work. I would love to see what the reaction is to, if like the Young Turks are redacted tonight, or on, Chris Hayes' show with some people or whatever, and just go, I think there's a responsibility for us as human beings to look at our own failings as human beings, what our limitations have been, and forgive Hillary Clinton. Like, they would freak out. So, again, I said this before and I believe it, and I will stick to this, and this is going to be the uncomfortable prevailing truth during the course of the Trump whatever it is, whether it's 6 months and then an impeachment hearing, or whatever happens. His come to Carter moment where he recognizes he used to be a Democrat and he goes back to being one. I mean, all these are possibilities because there's no there. Is that our responsibility is and needs to be a better command of our emotions and of the language and of logic. Because without it, we are easily baited into flipping out, and we're no better than a bunch of Tea Partiers standing around in tricorn hats going, not my president, he's a Muslim, blah, blah, blah. Like, it's silly. Takes more work. Like I said, and Carl's call today was terrific. Carl! I feel like every time he's on now, I have a Walking Dead flashback. Carl! He, making his point that he doesn't want to play nice with Donald Trump, and I'm like, I'm not playing nice with him. I just have a different strategy for dealing with him, which is anything that bipartisan that they can get through, it should absolutely get through and let him sign it, and do a victory lap about every positive aspect of it and go, well, and everything else just shrug off like that's a small thing to trade for what we got, even if it's 80-20 the other direction to some degree, and it won't be. Most of it will have to be 50-50 or it won't get through. And then every single day implement some sort of legal action against him for all the stuff he's trying to pull. So in open politics, for the good of the country, we'll sign a bill if it's bipartisan, and we'll absolutely vote on it and get it through. And if he wants to sign it, that's terrific. P.S. We have hearings tomorrow on the real estate holdings he won't get rid of. Or the fact that he's trying to get his family to buy back certain real estate under a shell corporation. If he does that, that's pay for play. I agree. I think it'll be more like 60-40. However, well, the problem with fighting fire with fire is it doesn't work. You fight fire with water or sand. I know I'm a stickler on some of this shit, but do you want to actually do it, or do you want to, like, go down swinging? I have no interest in going down swinging. I want to fight I can win, and I'm going to plan to win the fight. And part of it might be rope-a-dope. If I ran for office and won, do you think it would change it all or make others change? I don't think I would change. I don't think I would have to. Yeah, fight fire with CO2. That's a great option. You make a fire line sometimes. That's right. Well, that doesn't mean the fire is fighting the fire. That's fighting fire with ash. Because when you start a fire line, you literally burn the ground so that for a big enough space that it can't jump the wire. You can't jump the space, rather. The Bison lawyer, my concern is there's no political will to hold Donnie to account. There's a lot on his side, and unfortunately, many of those people are already very upset because a lot of the stuff he's saying he wants to do, he can't do. So he's already going to be on his heels. He's unpopular on a level that's almost unmeasurable at this point. CO2 is a pollutant. Purpose of a fight is end the fight, not Jet Li dancing, right? Understood, El Gato. Progressive and atheist, I'm still nice most of the time, but when I get a Christian telling me I'll go to hell, I call them word terrorist and get nasty. And again, Lord Dreckle, and again, this comes from somebody who, I mean, if you watched my my feed from the Creation Museum and all that stuff, those people don't have, they're hate-filled. They have no interest in being Christians in any kind of genuine sense. They believe in an eye for an eye. That's Old Testament stuff. They don't believe in the New Testament of Christ at all. So they can't call themselves Christians. You're like, you're an Old Testament. You're a fundamentalist. You're not a Christian. Just say that. But again, Lord Dracula, you can't because losing it is part of what gets them. Yeah, Trump has made everyone upset. Julie, you're absolutely right. And so, how do you win against somebody who does that? You literally don't let yourself get upset. That in and of itself is a strategy for winning. Trump should be in jail, not the White House. The shell game, he probably ran to avoid jail. It's entirely possible. But there's a difference between what's true and what's right and what's possible. And you have to decide which ones you can get. And you have to keep moving down the field. It's like being on a football team where all they want to throw are long bombs or something. And unless we get the long bomb into the end zone, I don't want to play the game. You know what? A lot of games are won inch by inch, yard by yard. That's why I have taken lately to not reply to anything if I get too pissed. Lord Dracula, I don't mind you getting pissed, but use that anger for something else. Transmute that anger into another strategy. Go, God, it's pissing me off. Okay, what would really annoy this person? Get a perspective. Pull back. It's okay to get upset. It's okay to get angry about this stuff because it matters. But you have to go, okay, how will my anger serve to solve the problem? If I'm just a panicked jerk, at the end of the day, where I'm just yelling labels because other people are yelling labels, the hell? I'm just kindling at this point. Not even the fire itself, So I just want everybody to consider that. I just want you to kind of, I'll sign off now because I've already gone an hour over the end of it, and I appreciate you guys sticking around and listening. It's great. It's, nearly everybody. Elgato, let your anger be your gift. There you go. And again, fighting fire with fire, but it's, if you're going to think in those terms, what's the fire in your belly, and what are you going to transmute it into? Because you have to turn it into an ash, a line of ash that they can't cross. There's nothing to burn here. That's, again, fighting fire with fire. The fire line is a great analogy, actually, for all this kind of stuff. Because if you want to talk about a fire line, you go, okay, we need to keep the fire from spreading this way, and we got to stop it. You end up burning some of your own ground on purpose. That's what you do. That's how it works. That's how a fire line works. We're going to take some good ground that isn't the best ground. We're going to burn this part of it so that the fire can't proceed. I'm going to give up something so that it can't pass this line. And that emotionally, that's the reason, that's the methodology. I'm going to burn part of my own sensitive self so that I don't get upset. I'm not going to allow myself the luxury of being offended. Because being offended is what they want, so I'm not going to give it to them. So I'm burning all the nerves that would make me offended. When they say God, ask which one. So, when you're out there, when you're on Twitter and you see a troll and you're doing all this kind of stuff, and you're like, oh, this guy, this woman, this blah, 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 whatever, and by the way, a bunch of them are paid Macedonian and Russian trolls who are just making money off this. So again, dismiss them as that until they prove otherwise. If you see somebody trolling and immediately go, which Google translator do you use to translate from Russian to English? And then don't answer them after that fact. And if they prove at some point to be a real person because they just dogged at it after a while, then go after one idea at a time. One idea at a time. And if they start to divert from the idea, the answer to them throwing something else at you to try and go, well, this is is you go, I thought so. And then disengage again. Because again, the greatest thing about being a progressive, about being a liberal, is that we truly do believe in freedom. Freedom to be yourself. The uncomfortable aspects of free speech. The uncomfortable aspects of personal identity. I don't have to be comfortable with what you identify as or what your opinion is, what your religion is. You have the right to believe and speak out about any of those kind of things. I can also criticize it, but I will never remove that right. And so ultimately, the one thing I have going for me is that unlike Donald Trump, who wants to make flag burning illegal now and wants to curtail what newspapers can write about him while he's president by changing libel laws so that you're guilty until proven innocent when you write critical stuff about political figures and stuff, and wants to basically turn it into a kingship, is they wrote horrible things about Barack Obama, a president I was proud to vote for twice, who I am honored to have had as my president, and yet at no point am I clamoring for the shutdown of the press. If Twitter wants to drop members of ISIS and the KKK because they're trying to use it as an organizing tool to get together and do some damage, great. And if Twitter decides eventually that they don't want to be an organization that wants to promote hate, great. They're not a news organization. They're not a newspaper. They don't purport to be. They're a corporation. They can say, yeah, we just don't let certain behavior in here. It's up to them. And if that ultimately includes me, tough. I'll have to move somewhere else. But at the baseline, we as progressives and liberals believe in freedom. However uncomfortable that freedom may be. And that's a strong position to be in. Because ultimately, I can always roll back and go, why do you hate freedom, man? Explain to me why people can't be gay if they want to be gay. Let's say you believe it's a choice. Let's say you're right about it being a choice. Let's entertain that what I consider a ridiculous argument, let's entertain that for a second. Shouldn't they have the right to do that? Should a religion have the right to dictate how people behave in the United States? And if so, if a different religion besides Christianity becomes dominant at some point, should it have that right? If Muslims or Jews or Celtics, Wiccans outnumber the number of Christians in this country, should they be able to change the protection under the law so that people can keep Christians out of their business? If you're wearing a cross, you can't come in here? No. So there you go. Kind of needed to talk about this today, and I'm glad you guys stuck around. I appreciate it. Sorry about the initial tech difficulties that we have, but it's there's a blessing to being a progressive, to being a liberal, to being a Democrat, that I get to look at everybody I see and hope the best for them. And currently the Republicans don't get to feel that way. Better than a semester at the Vulcan Academy. Come on, man. Oh, and the king and I was lovely. It was really nice. So, again, I don't mind if you get upset. I don't mind if you have a fire in your belly about a particular issue. I just want you to be creative about it. I want you to, when you're like, you can get engaged in a conversation, go back and forth, whatever. But the minute you catch yourself about to be insulting or about to include a descriptive of someone based on something they cannot change about themselves, including white, cisgender, straight, once you attach to that, then you are no better than they are. You're no longer attacking their ideas, you're attacking their identity. In which case you're saying attacking someone's identity is okay by you. And it's not. So, there's a weight you carry because being the better person in that circumstance. And as a comedian, I certainly have a lot more leeway around this stuff than most. But I do have the responsibility to be funny when I'm being a jerk. So that it's obvious that I'm joking to make a point. But again, the assignment in many ways is to avoid using any of the buzzwords. Avoid using any descriptive, racist, prejudiced, bigoted, homophobic, Islamophobic, about a person. And one of the best ways, if you do need to use it for descriptive of an idea or a concept, it is best in the case of how to argue of putting a divider in your conversation between the person and the idea they are espousing. I'm confused why someone who believes that Jesus Christ is their Lord and personal Savior, who said, turn the other cheek and love thy enemy, would think that, which is Islamophobic, which is homophobic. I can't believe that someone who believes in open markets and free and open trade and the power of capitalism would believe that some people who pay taxes don't get all the rights and protections of the government. If a corporation can get protections from the government but an individual can't, that's taxation without representation. I can't believe somebody who actually believes in the founding fathers would be okay with a multinational corporation getting all the rights and protections of the legal system and the identity, the intellectual property protections that the United States and the Patent Office and all those things, all the benefits of those without paying any taxes that would be required to do that. Or if they pay a fee to do it, it's the same fee an individual would have to pay, even though the scale is immense. If the government had to defend an Apple patent on their behalf by, through the legal shoring up of the actual system, the judges, all those people that come in, the legal costs only go to the lawyers. They don't, the fee to go into actual court is so low because everybody can use it, but they're obviously benefiting from it on a level off the scale. Why would you think that an individual who pays taxes wouldn't deserve this, would get less benefits than a corporation that doesn't pay any? Why should any of Donald Trump's properties receive any of the legal services, courtroom services, protection of the Justice Department here and overseas, which it does, if he doesn't pay any taxes? And if he doesn't, if you don't pay taxes, you should maybe forfeit those. Maybe if you guys want to check out of that, that's fine. But if you haven't paid any taxes, then you don't actually get the benefits. Then you're having an argument about how their belief is not in line with their values or their purported values, or their professed identity is out in conflict with their internal identity, which is what we say when we say a voter is voting against their best interests all the time. Or how do they believe this asshole when that he's going to help coal miners and the like? Because we've attached their identity to what they're arguing instead of the other way around. Allow them to save face by distancing themselves from the idea that you want to purge in the first place. So, there you go. All right, gotta go. You guys are awesome. Be well, and I will see you next time. The House Parks Radio Program, Mega Worldwide, signing out.